Breaking news, you're looking at video of one of the last times Oscar winner Gene Hackman, a known recluse in recent years, was seen in public.
Gene Hackman, one of Hollywood's greatest icons, a man who possessed everything: fame, power, money, and 2 Academy Awards. But when he closed his eyes for the last time, what he left behind was not just a colossal fortune worth tens of millions of dollars, but also a curse for his family. In the forbidden room of his house where Hackman lived his final years, people found not only perplexing financial statements, but also a list of Hollywood's buried secrets. But what frightened people the most was the testament that this man left behind, the contents of which brought his entire family to tears. So what legacy did Gene Hackman leave? A treasure or a curse? Are there any secrets still buried in the undiscovered documents? The answer will be in today's video. 1. Hollywood legend leaves the limelight. From an unknown struggling with hundreds of auditions to one of the greatest actors in Hollywood history, Gene Hackman conquered the film world with his extraordinary talent and unwavering perseverance. Throughout his 40-year career, he appeared in over 90 films, won 2 Oscars, 4 Golden Globe Awards, and a host of other prestigious titles. But then, at the peak of his career, he vanished. Hollywood has never lacked stars who left the film industry, but few did it like Gene Hackman. Without a farewell, without a grand announcement, without a lavish farewell party, he quietly withdrew from the screen in 2004, right after the film Welcome to Mooseport. When top directors like Martin Scorsese, Quentin Tarantino, and Christopher Nolan tried to invite Hackman back, he refused. Scripts written specifically for him, million-dollar fees, none of it was appealing enough. Hackman gave only a brief answer in a rare interview: "I've said everything I needed to say." Leaving the limelight, Hackman chose Santa Fe, New Mexico, as his retreat. Since the 1980s, he had bought a small house here, a place surrounded by pine forests, red dirt roads, and starry night skies. No one could have guessed that he had planned this secluded life for a long time. In Santa Fe, Hackman lived an almost anonymous life. Locals rarely saw him, except for the occasional time he cycled alone on the small hills or stopped at a gas station. A grocery store employee once said, "He looks very familiar, but no one is sure. It's like a ghost." Even when major newspapers like the New York Times or the Hollywood Reporter sought interviews, Hackman refused. Hollywood used to be his home, but now he wanted to forget it. But did Hackman really forgot Hollywood? Or was he running away from things no one knew? Although Hackman claimed he withdrew to seek peace, rumors about him continued to spread. Some sources said that Hackman had heart problems since the late 90s, and his withdrawal from Hollywood was part of a health preservation plan. However, the truth behind it was more chilling than what the media blew up. 2. Huge fortune and financial mystery. After many years in the profession, and achieving great success, it is not difficult to imagine the massive fortune he possessed. It is known that after inventory, Gene Hackman left a fortune worth more than $80 million, including cash, real estate, stocks, and investments arranged skillfully. However, the true value of that fortune lies not only in the huge numbers but also in the mysteries he deliberately concealed for decades. No one in the family, no close friend or colleague of his really understood the scale and how Hackman built this fortune. Everything only began to become clear when the documents were opened after his death, leading to shocking discoveries about a sophisticated financial network he had built over many years. People once thought that Hackman's will only listed visible assets such as his house in Santa Fe, bank accounts in California, and the classic Hudson Hornet car he had kept since the 1960s. The initial estimate was quite modest, less than $5 million. When the family's lawyer announced the contents of the will, family members did not show any surprise. They believed that Hackman, although a successful actor, was not a billionaire leaving behind a huge fortune. But everything completely changed when old financial documents were turned over. A series of papers, investment contracts, and bank transaction documents revealed a completely different picture. Hackman was not merely a wealthy actor, he had quietly built a multi-layered financial system, with secret investment funds, shell companies, and anonymous bank accounts scattered throughout the United States and even abroad. No one in the family could have imagined that Hackman had such a far-reaching financial vision, and these investments were not simply to increase assets but also had another purpose, a purpose that no one knew. Since the 1990s, Hackman had secretly built a complex financial network, including real estate stretching from California to New Mexico, stocks and investments in emerging technology companies, and even solar energy and infrastructure development projects in little-known areas. All transactions were conducted through shell companies and anonymous bank accounts, making it extremely difficult to trace the origin of each dollar. Some financial experts had questioned some of Hackman's unusual investments in the 90s, especially the money transferred to foreign trust funds, but no one really suspected him. With a man famous for his simple and discreet lifestyle, no one thought that Hackman could manage such a complex financial system. Internal investigations within the Hackman family, aided by financial experts, gradually unveiled a vast yet contradictory picture. Every money trail ultimately led back to a single account, one opened in 1993, shortly after Hackman won his second Oscar. This was the moment he reached the pinnacle of fame, but instead of basking in the Hollywood limelight, Hackman embarked on a secret plan. This raised many questions. Why did he hide his assets so carefully? Was he concealing something? Some theories suggest that Hackman realized his career wouldn't last forever and wanted to ensure his wealth was protected even after he was gone. But rumors also circulated that Hackman was not only a brilliant actor but also a master of financial concealment and manipulation. Among these financial mysteries, one name stood out in particular: Untouched Fund, a fund established by Hackman in the 90s with an unusual condition. Any family member who touched this fund would immediately forfeit their inheritance of all remaining assets. This condition was unprecedented in typical wills. It was not merely a financial rule but a powerful declaration of Hackman's control, even from beyond the grave. No one understood what this fund contained, but its emergence immediately sparked considerable controversy, even igniting a clandestine investigation by financial experts, private detectives, and even family members. They pored over documents, searched for every clue, trying to trace the fund's origins, but like an unsolvable puzzle, every lead turned into a dead end. There were no clear traces, no transactions directly linked to Hackman in the past 20 years, yet the fund persisted, like a colossal fortune hidden in the shadows. The family lawyer's cold assertion, "I don't know what Hackman hid there," only deepened the fund's mystery. Some experts suggested that the untouched fund might simply be a legal tool to ensure Hackman's assets wouldn't be easily dispersed. But bolder hypotheses emerged, that the fund could be related to a financial agreement Hackman made years ago, or even a secret charity he never disclosed. Whatever the truth, one thing was certain: Hackman had dedicated his life to controlling every aspect of his career and finances, and even in death, he sought to maintain that control. The existence of the untouched fund immediately presented family members with a difficult choice: accept its existence and maintain the financial status quo as Hackman intended, or attempt to uncover the real secrets behind it. Some family members believed Hackman had a valid reason for doing so, that he might be protecting something important. But others felt betrayed, especially his children, who had spent their lives in their father's shadow without ever truly understanding him. The ultimate question remains unanswered: did Hackman create the untouched fund to protect his assets or to conceal a truth? Did he truly want to control everything even after death, or had he prepared a plan unknown to anyone? These mysteries make Hackman's legacy not just a vast fortune but also a complex financial puzzle that no one can easily decipher. 3. Mysteries of personal documents. After Gene Hackman's passing, his family faced not only the loss of a loved one but also a series of mysteries concealed behind the closed doors of his forbidden room in Santa Fe. Personal documents, sealed away for the final years of his life, began to reveal a portion of the truth about this Hollywood legend. Among the discoveries, police uncovered peculiar financial transactions. If Hackman was simply an actor, why did he possess such a complex financial system, riddled with hard-to-trace dealings, anonymous investments, and private equity funds worth millions of dollars? Beyond the obvious investments in real estate, stocks, and art, the family also unearthed transfers of funds into private investment funds, totaling over $20 million. Where did this money go? Who were the beneficiaries? And why were there no official records documenting these transactions? Adding to the suspicion was the emergence of Frankie the Fox Catalano, a notorious Hollywood mafia kingpin, once investigated for money laundering in the 70s and 80s. Hackman and Catalano had connections dating back to the 70s, a time when Hackman was ascending to fame. But why would a leading actor associate with the underworld? Was Hackman entangled in shady debts or financial agreements? A brief note, found within Hackman's financial documents and written in his own hand, read, "Old debts, one way or another, must be paid." These cryptic words only deepened the questions. Who did Hackman owe? And how did he repay them? Even the financial experts hired by the family to investigate could not provide clear answers. Hackman's wealth stemmed not only from movies, but also from a hidden financial world he had kept secret for years. If the shadowy financial dealings had already shocked Hackman's family, his will, hundreds of pages long, was even more earth-shattering. The dense pages of legal clauses were not simply a standard distribution of assets, but a wall of absolute control erected by Hackman, even from beyond the grave. All of his assets, from the Santa Fe property and secret investments to his priceless art collection, were meticulously documented. Yet, accompanying them were inheritance conditions so stringent that they seemed designed not for fairness, but to maintain Hackman's control over his surviving loved ones. Every family member was bound by a crucial stipulation: no one was permitted to use Hackman's image or name to write memoirs, make documentaries, or recount any personal stories about him in any media. This meant that even in death, Hackman sought to keep his life private, preventing anyone from exploiting his fame to tell a story he couldn't control. This rule not only sparked dissatisfaction within the family but also raised questions: was Hackman hiding something? Was he afraid that the truth about his life would be exposed? Notably, even major Hollywood directors who had wished to make biopics about him were met with firm rejections from Hackman years before his passing. However, among all the inheritance conditions Hackman set, the most controversial clause concerned the untouched fund, a secret fund he had established in the 90s. The condition attached to this fund was, any family member who touched this fund, even once, would immediately forfeit their inheritance of all remaining assets. The severity of this stipulation not only stunned the family but also ignited a series of questions. Why did Hackman protect this fund so extremely? What did it contain that he didn't want anyone to touch? Even Hackman's lawyer, who had been with him for over 30 years, couldn't offer a clear explanation. When asked about the untouched fund, he simply replied, succinctly yet cryptically, "I don't know what Gene hid in there. And perhaps, we will never know." This only deepened the mystery. If even Hackman's personal lawyer had no access to this fund, then who truly controlled it? Among the legal documents found, there was no record specifying the actual amount of money inside the untouched fund, nor was there an official list of beneficiaries. Some financial experts hired by the family to investigate discovered that Hackman had links to a series of anonymous investment funds scattered across Switzerland, the Cayman Islands, and Singapore, financial havens renowned for their asset concealment capabilities. But why would an actor need to hide assets so meticulously? One theory suggested that the untouched fund was not merely a financial fund, but could contain larger secrets, perhaps evidence of shady dealings in the past, or sums of money Hackman wanted to keep out of reach of anyone, even his family. Some journalists had reported that Hackman had connections with powerful figures in finance and film, including Frankie the Fox Catalano, a Hollywood mafia boss once investigated for money laundering. The funds Hackman transferred into this fund might be related to transactions he never wanted to be revealed. However, another, more humane hypothesis emerged. Perhaps Hackman had established this fund not for himself, but for a greater purpose. Although in his will and through financial transactions, Hackman seemed to want to exclude his family from his legacy, in the end, he left behind a charitable fund named The Other Gene. This fund was established with an initial capital of approximately $10 million and was dedicated to funding scholarships and building schools for underprivileged children across America. Through this charitable fund, Hackman seemed to convey a message that, despite his life being full of mysteries and pain, he had not forgotten his roots, nor the memories of a poor boy, a boy who once dreamed of a normal life, unburdened by societal prejudices. This was also an act of atonement, a way of seeking forgiveness for past mistakes, and the final wish of a man who had lived in the limelight but also endured much loneliness. Alongside the confidential documents, a collection of unproduced scripts was discovered in Gene Hackman's forbidden room. These weren't just abandoned film projects, they were crucial pieces helping to reveal the hidden corners of a Hollywood legend's soul. Among them, the most prominent was a script titled The Last Confession, an unfinished manuscript containing haunting monologues, like a never-sent suicide note. Right from the first page, Hackman's trembling handwriting opened with a cold yet tragic declaration: "If there is a next life, I want to be born without anyone knowing I am Gene Hackman." This wasn't just an opening line, it was a profound confession of weariness, regret, and the haunting obsession of a man who had spent his life pursuing fame, only to long to relinquish the very thing the world admired him for. The following pages were unlike a typical film script. There was no clear plot, no fully developed characters. Instead, it was a painful dialogue between Hackman and himself, a questioning of fame, betrayal, and the loneliness behind the stage lights. Hackman didn't shy away from confronting questions he perhaps never dared to answer honestly throughout his life. To become famous is to sell your soul. How many people have I betrayed to maintain the name Gene Hackman? These lines were like a knife to the heart of anyone who read them. Had Hackman lived his entire life with a sense of guilt? Was the fame he achieved not simply the result of talent, but also accompanied by prices that only he understood? This script was not just an unfinished film work but also a belated confession. Hackman wrote about his impoverished childhood, his days of being expelled from school, working in the military, and the shattered dreams when he decided to embark on a film career. But even more chilling were the self-reflections on how he had to compromise to maintain his position in Hollywood. The self-questioning in the script served as a warning to anyone who ever aspired to reach the pinnacle of fame. He described the feeling of being trapped in his own limelight, a life unable to be lived as a normal person, constantly watched by the public, always having to maintain an image, and ultimately, losing himself. When information about Gene Hackman's vast fortune and the stringent conditions in his will was released, Hollywood media was instantly shaken. The story of a film legend's wealth suddenly became the center of attention, not only because of the enormous sum but also because of the mystery surrounding it. Major newspapers like the New York Times, Vanity Fair, and The Hollywood Reporter quickly launched investigations, releasing a series of in-depth articles, interviewing those who were once close to Hackman, and delving into the financial secrets that no one had known before. A widespread truth-seeking hunt ensued, as journalists, financial experts, and even private detectives all tried to decipher the puzzle of his legacy. Suspicions began to arise. Was Hackman not only a great actor but also a true, financial mastermind? Some journalists specializing in financial scandals suggested that Hackman had secretly built a multi-layered financial system to conceal mysterious funds. Financial documents revealed that from the late 90s, he had transferred a large portion of his assets into private investment funds in Switzerland, the Cayman Islands, and Singapore, tax havens famous for their absolute secrecy. This led to an even more chilling hypothesis. Could Gene Hackman have been involved in clandestine dealings with major financial institutions, or even entangled with Hollywood's underworld? Another, even bolder theory suggests that Hackman might have been threatened or blackmailed in his later years. Some financial analysts noted that large sums of money from Hackman's secret fund were transferred to anonymous accounts just before he decided to retire in 2004. This fuels the hypothesis that Hackman might have known something dangerous, and to protect himself or his reputation, he had to buy silence, by withdrawing from Hollywood and retreating to Santa Fe. Could it be that the strict conditions in Hackman's will were not only to protect his assets but also to prevent anyone in his family from digging too deeply into his past? But one thing is certain, the story of Hackman's legacy has become too captivating to be forgotten. It's not just a financial matter, but also a tale of power, fame, loneliness, and the secrets a man carries to his dying breath. The media relentlessly exploits new details, while Hackman's family faces deeper rifts than ever before. 4. The complex father-child relationship. So why did Gene Hackman harbor such strange secrets unknown even to his own family? To unravel this question, we need to revisit his family story. Hackman may have been a screen legend, but in his children's eyes, he was a distant, cold, and unapproachable father. He had 3 children with his first wife, Faye Maltese, Christopher, 65, Elizabeth, 63, and Leslie, 58. However, for many years, the relationship between Hackman and his children, especially his two daughters, was far from ideal. In his younger years, Hackman devoted most of his time to pursuing his acting career, constantly traveling to participate in films, leaving behind a family with a father figure who was almost absent. He once admitted that his passion for cinema had created an invisible barrier between him and his children. In a rare interview, he said he had lost touch with his son very early on and expressed regret for not being able to be there for his children during crucial stages of their lives. This leads many to wonder, if Hackman couldn't make time for his son, did his two daughters suffer the same fate? Elizabeth and Leslie grew up in a family with a famous father, but instead of receiving adequate attention, they seemed to be forgotten. Throughout their childhood and adulthood, they rarely appeared with their father at events or were mentioned by him in interviews. This clearly indicates that the affection between them was not truly close-knit. Nevertheless, Hackman remained a mysterious figure in the public eye as he very rarely spoke about his private life. Therefore, the level of connection between him and his children remains a question without a clear answer. In a rare interview, Elizabeth, Hackman's youngest daughter, once confided about the sadness when recalling her childhood. She said her father was always busy, constantly working, and seemed never to truly make time for family. The moments a child should have with their parents, family meals, learning to ride a bike, or bedtime stories, were, for her, just distant dreams. She couldn't remember the last time her father read her a bedtime story, nor could she recall a single instance where the two of them sat at the dining table and talked wholeheartedly. Instead, she only remembered images of her father on magazine covers, his appearances on television with powerful speeches, or the brief handwritten letters he sent home from distant film sets. "I grew up in a house where my father was very rarely present," Elizabeth shared. "He was always somewhere else, in some faraway place I couldn't reach." Christopher, Hackman's eldest son, was the one most significantly impacted by his father's shadow. From a young age, he idolized his father, longing to one day follow in his footsteps. He was passionate about cinema, loved stories told on screen, and once dreamed of becoming a director. But as he grew older, he realized that the name Gene Hackman was an invisible shackle, something that always followed him, no matter where he went or what he did. Every time Christopher stepped onto a film set, his father's image loomed in every camera angle, every comment from others, every pressured comparison from industry insiders. No matter how hard he tried, no matter how diligently he worked, he was still only known as Gene Hackman's son. No one truly recognized his talent as an independent individual, they only saw in him a pale imitation of his great father. The feeling of being trapped in his father's shadow increasingly eroded Christopher's self-confidence. He realized that no matter what he did, he could never surpass the monument that was Gene Hackman. Even when he tried his hand in business, the Hackman name still haunted him. People didn't see his efforts, didn't see the creative ideas he brought, but only saw a man trying to escape his father's overwhelming shadow. This obsession made Christopher want to give up everything many times, yet he also couldn't let go. He wanted to prove that he could succeed in his own right, but the more he tried, the more he felt himself being pulled into a hopeless loop. Relationship between Gene Hackman and his children was never truly healed, even as he aged and decided to leave Hollywood behind. Despite spending his final years in the tranquility of Santa Fe, Hackman never truly reconnected with his family in the way many might have hoped. Unsent letters, missed calls, apologies never spoken, all of these created an invisible distance, a crack that time could not erase. Despite his declining health, Hackman seemed not to receive much attention from Elizabeth and Leslie. It was only upon his death that images of all three children gathering together were seen. The already strained relationship took another turn after his death when other family secrets were revealed. In addition to the shadowy findings, 4 diaries spanning from 1995 to 2022 were discovered in the Forbidden Room, revealing many aspects of Hackman's personality that no one had known before. Gone was the image of a great actor with 2 Oscars, in his place was a solitary man, torn between the limelight and the peace he never attained. The early pages of the diaries are filled with beautiful memories of Betsy Arakawa, his second wife, and spontaneous trips to Japan, France, and Italy, places where he could escape the Gene Hackman persona and become an ordinary man. In an entry from 1998, Hackman confided. "Only when I leave America do I feel truly normal. Not Gene Hackman, not a legend, but just a simple man." These gentle words reflect Hackman's longing for a simple life, but fame had turned that into a distant dream. He couldn't walk down the street without being recognized, couldn't have a normal meal without being surrounded by the curious gazes of the public. However, while the initial diary entries evoked a sense of peace, over time, Hackman's handwriting became erratic, the ink smudged, reflecting long, lonely, and remorse-filled nights. The later pages of the diary no longer recorded happy moments, but instead, bitter confessions of loneliness, regret, and fractured family relationships. An entry from Christmas Eve of 2005 reveals one of the most heartbreaking moments. December 23, 2005. Christopher didn't call. "I once told him he would never escape my shadow, but now, I realize I am the shadow that has always haunted him. I have failed as a father. I don't know if, in the end, he will ever forgive me." These words, though simple, contain a profound sadness. Hackman was aware of his mistakes, but seemingly didn't know how to fix them. Increasingly, the diary pages became more disordered, reflecting a mind tormented by painful memories and endless thoughts. Gene Hackman's departure not only left a void in his family's hearts but also ignited endless debates in the media, financial circles, and the film community. His legacy was not simply a massive number, but a chain of mysteries, stringent inheritance conditions, and questions that have never been clearly answered. Why did Gene Hackman choose to hide his entire fortune from his own family? That is the biggest question that no one can answer. He lived his whole life in fame, yet ended in isolation. Was it the consequence of loss, of emotional wounds that never healed? Or simply, had he spent his entire life controlling everything to the point that even after passing, he still wanted to maintain control? The distance Hackman established between himself and his family now morphed into a bitter legacy. Journalists, financial analysts, and even conspiracy theorists began to delve into his life, trying to piece together the portrait of a man who had spent his life concealing himself. But the more they investigated, the more questions arose, and Hackman's legacy became more complex than ever. Hackman's family, those who should have been the greatest beneficiaries, found no solace in the fortune he left behind. For them, that wealth held no material value, but was a painful reminder of broken memories, of emotional wounds that had never been healed. Christopher and Elizabeth, Hackman's two children, though grown and having built their own lives, still couldn't escape their father's shadow. Gene Hackman was both an inspiration and an insurmountable burden in their lives. They not only grew up under public expectation but also had to live with the pain of a father who was always distant, who had chosen fame over family. Efforts at reconciliation, attempts to reconnect with the past, only added to the complexity. Nothing could erase the distance Hackman had created between himself and his family. No matter how much money he left behind, the only thing his children truly desired, a father's recognition, a father's love, was forever gone. Betsy Arakawa, Hackman's second wife, despite having lived with him for decades, could only accept the truth that she had never truly understood the man she called her husband. He was always a mystery, a man living between two worlds, one of Hollywood, and one world that was solely his, where no one could touch. Hackman's family didn't just lose a loved one. They lost the chance to truly understand and love him while he was alive. Gene Hackman's story is not just a personal tragedy, but also a profound lesson for future generations. It stands as proof of the price that fame can demand, and how power and money can transform into burdens instead of joys. We live in a society where success is often measured by fame and the wealth one possesses. But Hackman is an example showing that fame is not synonymous with happiness, and excessive control can become an invisible shackle. Throughout his life, Hackman tried to control everything: his career, reputation, assets, and even his family. But that very control was what pushed him away from those he loved. And in the end, he died alone, in a remote house, with secrets that no one could fully comprehend. Hackman's story is a warning. It reminds us that behind the glitz of Hollywood, behind great successes, there always exist losses that no one can see. A brilliant career can captivate audiences, but it can also make a person lonely, lost amidst what they have created. Gene Hackman's legacy, though built with enormous numbers and a sophisticated financial system, ultimately became a chain of painful memories, a tragic tale of loss, loneliness, and unspoken sorrow. Gene Hackman was not just a film legend, but also a complex human being, yearning for freedom yet imprisoned by fame and his own decisions. Unsent letters, diary pages stained with ink, financial transactions no one fully understands, all are pieces of a life constantly struggling between two worlds. What do you think about Hackman's final decisions? Was he protecting his legacy or hiding something? Leave your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss next thrilling videos.